Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Sweet Combat Season 1, Episode 23. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're immediately picking up where the last episode left off with Queen leaving Macau, go to Hong Kong so she can get to Dubai, and lo and behold, who does she run into? She doesn't see her, but Uncle G's wife ends up seeing her, and we find out she actually recognized Queen immediately. Well, maybe she didn't, but the first run-in, she didn't. But after the second run-in, it's like, nope, that's definitely her, and it's got to be the same girl because she mentioned who she was previously. So, Xiao Mi, who's sadly crying her eyes out, she's trying to get away from Hao. Hao wants to be a good friend and wants to be there for her, but she's kind of drunk and wallowing in her sorrows, and she's like, I want to be alone, and if you follow me, I'm going to kick you to the stars. So he kind of has no choice but not to follow her. But, and once again, it's heartbreaking. Like, this episode, it hits you with all the emotions because you feel so bad for Xiao Mi, but then you're also like, but it also makes you feel bad, extra bad, because you feel so happy for Tian and Feng Yu that it just kind of like makes you kind of feel so bad. So it's such a hodgepodge of feeling bad and good at the same time, and that when it comes to that love triangle of sorts. So that's once again kind of a love square. Once again, you mix in Hao into that conversation because of how he feels about Feng Yu, but Xiao Mi overheard the conversation with the auntie, and it turns out what this is it's a somewhat, no, because she even said it herself. She said it's insurance fraud. It's an insurance fraud thing. So it turns out, because they set this up last episode, Xiao Mi was kind of looking at this boxer whose wife was like nearby, because she even said like, yeah, one of those people's voices sounded so familiar. And I guess she didn't recognize, like, she'd heard the woman's voice when she was talking to her husband the other day, but it didn't correlate it was the same woman. I was like wondering, I was like, oh, I thought they were going to focus on that more and they didn't, but now it's like, oh, now we see why. But yeah, her husband is sick, and it's like the best way to kind of get an insurance payout is to make it so, like, if they die during something like that, and even she kind of, like, the lady was like, didn't that ruin someone's life? Because, Tian's father got blamed for her husband's death, and it's like, yeah, it sucks. It's his draw in life that that family kind of got ruined, but this is her only way to, like she said, like, basically her husband was a bodyguard at with the Feng group and ended up getting fired for no reason. I wonder if that's what that's one. Now in retrospect, if him being a bodyguard makes me go like, is he actually the Mr. Park character of this story? Like, was he kind of like the bodyguard, and maybe that's why he got fired, because he got too close to Feng Yu, and her grandfather was like, no, you're like making her soft and weak. So, because let's not forget, he took that doll away from her, the bunny that Uncle G had given her. So there might be a correlation there. I doubt he seemed like an upstanding dude, but to be fair, we've only gotten Feng Yu's perspective on him, and she has a very idealistic version of him because he was so good and fundamental to her. He was the one person she could turn to in her family when, well, obviously she couldn't really turn to her parents, and her parents died when she was young, but also she couldn't turn to her grandfather. She could be vulnerable with her uncle in a way she could never be vulnerable with anyone else, and that's once again also why like the Tien thing is so important too, because she's able to kind of be vulnerable with him in a way she can't really be with anyone else to some extent. But I mean, in a way, once again, because they are setting up the parallels of Tien and her uncle were like the same type of person of, hey, especially interesting too, considering like, once again, her trauma is associated with her uncle, and people like Tien and her uncle are those comforter type of people. And then what did Tien say about Feng Yu? Like, had the same eyes that he remembers his mom having, like the fierceness and maybe that coldness to some extent. So it is interesting parallels that their traumas are kind of like, in some shape or form, some aspect of the person associated with their trauma is visible in the other person. It's actually interesting when you break that down like that. But either way, because it turns out because once again, Feng Yu had brought that up to her brothers. Like, how is she doing okay? Why is she here? Why does it seem like she's doing okay? And it turns out that's why, because of an insurance policy. And I'm guessing she hooks other people up with it, because the woman she's talking to, she's like, let me get a slice of that pie. Like, whatever it is, because I'm setting this up, I'm giving you this information, I get some of that insurance policy. So I guess that's how she's kept herself afloat like all these years, because it is a thing of, right, I had a son to take care of, like this was the only way I could make ends meet, which obviously is so sad, like because Tien's family fell apart and he had to struggle so hard to keep him and his family afloat. You've been kind of you've definitely been doing some shady stuff to keep your family afloat. So it's just like everyone kind of making do. You know, I guess it all starts with why her husband got fired from the Fong group in the first place. But that's why my initial thought is because he was getting too close to Fong Yu. But we'll have to wait and see. But Zhao Mi like was overhearing all that, and she ends up bringing it up to Yanan. But it's like, oh, why would that lady mention Fong Yu? Like, what's the correlation there? So once again, we are this, like I said, this through line is so interesting because I'm so curious to see how it all like culminates and how it plays out in the story. But you know, it's like everyone's getting pieces to the puzzle. You know, everyone's got a piece to this, and they just haven't put them fully together yet. So, but yeah, like Hao ends up finding out the next day about Tien and Fong Yu, and he's happy for them. At least he pretends to be. He's like, because like Tien's like, are we still friends? He's like, yeah, you bet. I was like, oh, good on you, Hao. But he's going through it too, like Zhao Mi, where he ends up talking to his mom later on, and she's like, oh, that's wonderful that they're together. And Hao's looking like, what? Whose side are you on, Mom? He's like, well, you're the one that said you wished that you were happy that they were, if she was happy. He's like, yeah, but I found out how not noble I am. I'm going through it. But his mom is telling him, like, right, there's other fish in the sea, but even kind of points out, you know, you always get with that spicy, like, you know, senior of yours. He's like, no, me and Zhao Mi, no. He's like, what about this type of food and this type of food? And his mom's like, diarrhea. What about this food and this food? She's like, food poisoning. He's like, that's what me and Zhao Mi together be. But she's like, sometimes diarrhea is a good thing because it gives you a detox. But he's like, well, I don't want a detox. It's like, once again, planting those seeds, and they've been kind of threading that. It's been there the entire time, but they're really threading it now that neither one of them can be with the person that they really like. So, not saying it's like going to be a thing of, well, you're second runner-up. It's just, it's a thing of when things don't work out, you might you end up realizing what's been in front of you the entire time. You just never took notice. They never really took notice of each other like that. Even though the funny thing is, Zhao Mi has spent a lot of time. I mean, to be fair, both Hao and Zhao Mi have spent a lot of time with Tien and Fong Yu respectively, but they haven't, like, Hao hasn't really got to know Fong Yu the way Tien has. And the same Zhao Mi, I still make the argument Zhao Mi hasn't even like learned a lot about Tien the way Fong Yu has. So that does make it interesting too, of like, yeah, here's these people you like, you know enough about them, you've seen certain aspects and sides of them that not everyone has, but there's deeper connections that Fong Yu and Tien have, which we'll get to later on when we talk about the Zhao Mi of it all. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. Sadly, the Yanan and everything comes to a head with Yanan, her dad, as well as Guanyan, because, well, we'll circle back to the more comedic stuff after we get to the heartbreak of it all, but Yanan like has a heart-to-heart with her dad, and I guess Guanyan got called over, and yeah, she was pissed at him, and she brings up like, right, you only wanted to be with me for the death strike. He's like, no, that was a joke. But she's like, no, like, it all, once again, it's a confirmation bias where it's like in her head she was already kind of thinking like, no, he doesn't actually really like me, and now she, in her head, it's like, oh, that's why, like, she's justifying like her own insecurity about it. I mean, once again, it was a joke, sure, but it's still like, it is part of the conversation. Her dad was trying to set her up and Guanyan up, but he does legitimately like her, but the problem is she can't believe anything out of his mouth now, you know, because for him it's like, no, my training with your dad and my feelings for you are two separate things. The whole death strike thing, like, I want him to teach me that, but like going out with you to get it, it's like, that was a joke. But for her, it's just like, she's so heartbroken, and it's like, I can't believe a single word out of your mouth. I can never and will never trust you again. And he tries to stop her, and she like almost like punches him in the face, and it's just like, you know, it's just, and just seeing her, once again, you, like, she's so despondent last episode, like, how, like, she was just so, like, you could see the hurt on her face, but she didn't, like, fully let it show. She let it out this episode, like, when she was turned away from him and bawling her eyes out. Because that's the also interesting thing. Like, once again, the only character you get that with is Zhao Mi. With like Zhao Mi and Dao Dao, like, the character from the webtoon, but you never get to see that side of Moon Young. Like, Moon Young's never in that position in the webtoon, so it's interesting to see that with Yanan. And for him, it's like, right, I'm sorry I never got up to 100 reasons why I like you, and you might not believe like the other 99 reasons, but my 100th reason for liking you is because you're Yanan. And she wants, I think on some level, she wants to believe him, but she can't. She's too heartbroken right now. She did also let it slip that Zhao Feng is the one that told her this. So we didn't get the confrontation this episode, but I'm so curious to see what happens between Guanyan and Zhao Feng. And like, what is he going to do now? Like, obviously he still has an obligation as his janitorial duties. Like, what is he going to do? Because he wants to do whatever he can to make her believe him. Like, no, I really do care for you. I do like you. How do I prove that? And we'll have to wait to see how that turns out. But I'm curious, like, will he confront Zhao Feng or not? Because I thought maybe she'd make a remark, and that's how he'd find out. But like, Zhao Feng would say something, and that's how he'd find out after like Yanan's avoiding him or something. But nah, we went straight to it the moment they got back from Macau. So it's like, damn, dude. So all the while that's happening, like I was bringing up, kind of going into more comedic bit, there's a whole thing with Yanan's dad guzzling down water because apparently that spice from the Hao family, which I think speaks volumes that Feng Yu was able to handle it. But to be fair, she was going through some emotional turmoil at the time. She was heartbroken, so she wanted to feel anything other than her sadness. So like, it lit a fire in her that she was able to kind of focus on that rather than her own feelings. But yeah, like Yanan's dad is going through it mentally, physically, and emotionally, the ultimate trifecta of pain, because he's yelling to his wife, like, how could you do, like, he's like, I'm fine being a single widow for the rest of my life. I kind of don't need anybody. Being on my own is fine. I got so caught up in those 7 marks I shouldn't even bothered, and then, yeah, it's just poor guy, And he's just kind of like, right, I'm not going to listen to you anymore when it comes to this type of stuff. He's like, because I was following your plan. You told me to kind of go. It's like, no, I'm not listening to you when it comes to that anymore. So I love that near the end of the episode, he runs into Hao's mom at the store, and he's trying to avoid her. And he gets in the middle of this crowd of women, and Yanan's dad's there just holding and waiting, and then he notices that he's in front of like the female underwear section, and he's got a bra in his hand. He's like, I'm here to get this for my wife. It's like, yeah, but that's the junior set. He's like, will it make me seem less perverted if I said that I was jumped into this crowd to avoid someone? And all the ladies look at him like, no. He's like, okay, like I really was just trying to avoid someone. He tries to wipe the sweat off his face, but he realizes he's doing it with a bra, so he throws it down. I'm like, oh, you poor bastard. Once again, you're going through it. This episode was not your episode either, so. Once again, Zhao Mi is still going through it herself. As she's walking, I love that you see all these dudes. Like, one dude on a bike falls off looking at her. Another dude drops his bag. Another dude's hanging out with his girlfriend, and he like double back and looks at Zhao Mi, and his girlfriend slaps him in the face. Like, what are you doing? And it's just like, yeah, she's like, I look adorable even when I look so haggard. So she's like, you know what? I'm not gonna like let this keep me down. I'm too great to let that happen. So she's breaking all the boards in the Taekwondo club, but now like they have none for the rest of the semester. It's like, cool, we're gonna have to pull our money together and buy some more. So Tian's like, right, I've gotta train you. I am your coach. So 40 like kicks. Like, it's like 20 regular kicks and then 20 high kicks. If you're able to knock me down, I'll do whatever wish you want me to within reason. And she was able to knock him down, and it's like, right, Tian still underestimated Zhao Mi. It's like, yeah, most people going up against her have to put on headgear because her kicks are devastating. Because she was like, because he was talking to Chanhua, who was like, yeah, amongst anyone at this school, Zhao Mi seems like the most likely to give Feng Yu a run for her money. I think it's like either the director or the president believes that the most. So, because obviously Tian thought like, right, they've been through this situation before, but he thought like, oh, because I've been training, I thought I'd handle this better. But it's like, yeah, Zhao Mi, as Chanhua puts it, she has a capability to be a champion, but she'd rather be more of a housewife than that. you know, and it's like, oh, like, you know, what's going on that front? Tian's like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, literally everyone in the school knows how she feels about you. That it's like she's yelling your name or getting upset if you ever got beaten up. It's like that's who Zhao Mi is. But then she kind of catches on like, oh, you and Feng Yu, because she saw Feng Yu's name pop up on his phone and he's dashing off on his own, which I got to circle back because I forgot. Once again, that whole, I mean, it all plays into the larger conversation, so I'll go ahead and say it. But I really like that what we're getting with Feng Yu and Tian, because you do not get that at all in the webtoon. Them actually dating, like they don't actually, like, there's pseudo dates, but they're not even, I wouldn't even count them as pseudo dates, because the only real date they kind of would have had was the theme park, which they were luckily able to go to, but that was as a group in this. But also, like, it happens in the webtoon, but sadly, once I talked about it, Jaegu, like, had to miss it because of circumstances. Like, his sister was sick, and just things didn't line up, and he ended up missing his chance, like, his one chance to be with Queen there. But other than that, like, they were together in, like, pseudo dates, but it was really both. At the time in the story, both of them kind of knew how the other felt about them, and they were still kind of going through it, so it wasn't really a date, I don't think. So, like, us getting to see them kind of date officially, it's kind of wild, because even, like, Jaegu and Queen in the webtoon do not even officially get together until, like, the final chapter of the series. So it's like, that's what I mean, like, you never get to spend time with them as on a couple. I didn't even make the argument them hanging out in Macau together last episode was a date, you know, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see that kind of get explored in a way, because obviously we didn't get to experience them really as a couple in the webtoon. So I thought that's going to be a nice exploration to kind of really get to see that relationship fleshed out, because we never actually got to fully see them in the relationship. We only saw, like, leading up to them becoming the relationship, getting into the relationship, and like I said, that's where the series ends. So, and Zhao Mi ultimately ends up seeing them together and walks away. And then ultimately Tian catches up with her later and wants to talk to her about it. It's like, right, me and Queen are dating, and I should have told you sooner. And she's like, oh, well, if you want my blessing, you know, you're not really kind of going to get that. But it's like, for her, it's like, I'm trying to understand, why do you find someone why do you and Feng Yu, like, mesh together so well? Like, I'm trying to understand. She's like, I'm the type of person that if I lose in a ring, I got to understand the reason behind it. And it's like, she's like, I don't want the excuse of you can't really control how you feel about someone. And for Tian, it's more so a thing of, we are from two different worlds. He's like, I could never compensate the difference between our worlds, even if I, like, climbed in a helicopter. And she's like, it's so abstract, his, like, metaphor for it, that she was like, I can't really understand that. And for him, it's like, well, let me put it this way. It's like the top person in class and the lowest person in class. Like, what are the things that they have in common? They both don't have any friends. So it's like, but despite the worlds they live in being so far apart, there's still a commonality between them, and that common ground is something, and being able to empathize with that person, it just makes you want to get closer and closer to them. And Zhao Mi saying this line of, oh, I'm not first or last, she's like, I'm number 2, but she's like, you know, for her it's like, so does that mean I'm kind of not going to find my person? But for her it's like, you know what, but even if that's the case, she's like, I might be number 2, but I will be your number 2 supporter, and extends her hand, which I think is so beautiful. That's another thing, we never got clarity on Jaegu and Dao Dao's relationship after it was all said and done, because when Jaegu turns Dao Dao down, she avoids talking. Like, they'll cross paths with each other, but she would not see a word to him. They'd look at each other, and then she just keep it moving. And so some things happen. Once again, I won't go into it, just in case the show covers it. But like I said, it's a thing that happens. I don't think the show's going to do it because it's pretty dark. So we'll see. But a thing happens, and Jaegu and Dao Dao are in a better place post this thing happening. But they're still in this awkward phase because Jaegu hadn't quite, like, stepped up. Like, just like Tian's biggest concerns have always kept him from, like, confessing to Feng Yu, Tian was the same way. Jaegu was the same way with Queen in the webtoon, that it's just like he was too afraid to take a leap of faith when it came to his feelings type of thing. And so we never got too much opportunity to see where him and Dao stood at the end of the series, like where their friendship is. It's like, right, like we're hanging out in groups, but us on our own doesn't really happen anymore. But like I think I'd like to believe they're still going to be friends, but it's still going to be awkward for a while. And I think that's where Zhao Mi and Tian are right now. But I think when it's all said and done, the TV show will give you an opportunity to explore them being in a friendship more, like what that means. And this was kind of a nice first step because we never even got this in the webtoon. It was just, it's awkward and complicated, you know, once feelings are involved. So, like I said, I just don't think it's, the show's handling it. And once again, it's not a thing of like, oh, the show's doing a better job of it. It's just the show's able to kind of depict it in a different way, which I thought was interesting, and able to kind of explore it a little bit more than the webtoon was able to. That's all it is. It's kind of almost like, it's almost like added flavor text, but it's not, like I said, it's not even a one-to-one because the whole romance situation plays out quite different. Like it's the same end result, but like how you get there is so different, and there's still so much time to explore that because, like I said, there's other wrinkles in their story that the webtoon didn't have that the TV show gets to explore. So, but I do like that Zhao Mi was at this store and she's picking up like a reclining chair, I think kind of a massage chair, and she wants how they're with her, and it's like, why are we here? And she's like, to celebrate my and Tian's breaking up. Well, more so like me getting over him. And Hao's like, why is that something to celebrate? Because for her, it's an opportunity to kind of just let go. It's like, right, this never happened and it just never will, but you know, I'm finding a way to move forward. And it's like, Hao's like, but why am I here? Because she's like, you're a part of my alliance, so like, you know, it's up to you to be here with me while I'm sulking. Because to be told is, I mean, I guess from Zhao Mi's perspective, Hao was handling the Feng Yu of it better. I mean, to be fair, we're two peas in a pod. The people we both like are with each other, so that, and not with us. So, you know, but she even takes him to like a drop tower ride at the theme park, and he's like, why do we have to do this? She's like, I want that feeling of kind of like that feeling you get on a ride like this until like I'm able to kind of put fully to bed my feelings for Tian. And it is kind of cute them being together and Hao losing his mind, being like, I want to get off, but she's like, nope, you're locked in, you know. So here we go, and just that's where the episode ends. Oh, but other than that, we do have other elements, one more element to cover, and that's the situation with Feng Yu and her brother lying to their grandfather. Can be like, oh yeah, like we're going to go out, check out this particular branch of the business. Feng Yu's never been there, so I'm going to go with her to it. And the grandpa's like, okay, he's definitely suspicious. And even if he's not suspicious, it's just a reminder of what Shiwei set up last episode. So it's like, yeah, I got to investigate this Tian kid. But yeah, like her brother's covering for her, and he's like, yeah, like, so you guys can go on a date. I'll look after his two like Rugrat siblings, which, you know, I'm excited to see that. I'm assuming that's going to pop up next episode, but kind of along those lines, in the webtoon, Queen's brother and Tian's siblings have a really good relationship. You know, it's a relationship you would have like, I would have never saw coming, but like he likes them a lot and he wants to spoil them a lot. So I think it's also like the webtoon never explored this, but I'm curious if the TV show will. The angle of he's the younger brother, and now it's like on some level he gets to have basically little siblings. That might have been like alluded to in the webtoon, that's kind of what he was feeling. It kind of was, but I don't think it was ever outwardly said. Maybe it was. So, but it is a thing of like, yeah, like, you know, he gets to be the big sibling once upon a time. I mean, he kind of has to look after his sister, even though she's older. He has to hold a lot of responsibilities, and he doesn't mind doing stuff and making sacrifices for his sister because he's fine with it, even though, you know, because he goes so above and beyond because he loves his sister and he knows like she's not fine with a lot of stuff that's thrust upon her. He's fine taking it on, and, you know, he's fine with putting that, because all of it's going to go to him anyway. It's like Feng Yu just kind of gets dragged along because it was all supposed to be on her shoulders until her brother was born. It was put on his shoulders. So, and once again, Feng Yu is even kind of brought it up to her brother. She feels bad that so much of like she kind of, even though as the older sibling, she still puts a lot of pressure on her brother. So, but yeah, I thought that was kind of neat, like I said, except for the grandpa situation, because it's going to be interesting, like I said, to see how that it's going to play out in the TV show. But I'm excited to see where the next episode ultimately ends up taking us. I also want to add this in here because I completely forgot to talk about it earlier, was the Tien and Fong Yu, like two things I forgot to talk about. First and foremost, the 4 a.m. call, her pacing back and forth. Do I call him? It's most likely like 4 a.m. there for him. She said, you know what? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let it ring twice, and then I'm going to just hang up. That's all I'm going to do. But she didn't stop after 2 rings. And it's so sad because Tien's phone is in his hand. You're like, oh. I was like, is he not going to get it in time? I was like, oh, she's going to do the 2 ring things. But she kept letting it ring, and she was kind of hoping that he'd pick up. Which he wakes up, and he drops his phone. I was like, please get your phone in time. And he does answer, and they get to talk. I'm like, yeah. I was so happy about that. Like I said, it's so adorable, those moments like that. She's like, were you asleep? He's like, no, I was working out. Exercising. But he was like, actually, I was actually waiting for your call. I was like, that's why his phone was in his hand. Oh my god, you two are so disgustingly adorable. And she was so happy to hear that. And he's trying to be like, oh, right, since you're in Dubai, make sure you wear long sleeves and cover up, in case, only time you're like allowed not to do that is like in case you're in the hotel. But she's like, no, I've been here a couple times like throughout my life, so I'm aware of the customs and stuff. He's like, okay. He's like, oh, make sure you stay hydrated. And he was kind of beating himself up because he's like, oh, here I'm saying all this stupid stuff. Of course Fong Yu knows all this stuff already. Like, who am I to educate her, But she still appreciated it. It's just a situation of she's just happy to be able to talk to him. And I'm just like, that's so adorable. It's too damn adorable, dude. But then later on, when they're hanging out at school and sitting on the grass, the time when Zhao Mi ended up seeing them together was when she gave him his present, and it's a bunny. It's meant to be a companion to the one he got her in Macau. And it's like, this way, even when we're not together, you could like pretend like this is me and, tell me whatever you need to tell me. He's like, right, anytime I'm happy, I'll tell it to this bunny. Anytime I'm not happy, I'll tell it to this bunny. This way, we're never ever truly alone because we'll always be with each other at some part. I'm like, oh, you guys, come on. Once again, as I brought up before, being able to explore the relationship with stuff like that is so dope. But yeah, like I said, I just wanted to add that in there because I was going to be like, should I not talk about it? But since I was missing 2 parts of it and they're super adorable, I figured I'd circle back and comment on that. So, but yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.